Good morning, everybody. It is August 2021, and this is your nonprofit executive leadership roundtable. I'm Tommy DiMisa, and for the last almost 3 years now, we're going on 3 years, Christine Deska and I have been collaborating along with Frank Orzo from Nonprofit Sector Strategies. And we always start our meetings off with having the opportunity for each of the individuals in residence here today to introduce themselves and tell us what's going on. So we'll start with Melissa Greenberger and then Krista Janik, but just let's go with name, organization, what you provide, what your organization provides, and then if there's any specific ask, if there's anything you as an individual or you as your organization are looking for right now, please feel free to share that, and then we will just kind of move through the process. So Melissa, why don't you start us off, and then we'll go to Krista, please.
Great. Thanks, Tommy. Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Greenberger. I'm a senior staff attorney at Pro Bono Partnership, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We provide free legal services to existing nonprofits in the tri-state area. We also provide opportunities for lawyers who want to do some volunteer work in their areas of practice. I'm currently looking for additional attorney volunteers. And since COVID, it's been hard to do outreach on Long Island. So if you know nonprofits that are looking for any legal assistance, please send them my way. I'd be happy to speak with them and see how we can help them out. Thanks.
I have a quick question. I know this is not part of the program, but I'm running the program, so I guess I could ask a question. How do you typically reach out to law firms? Like, is it as simple as I should say to my friends, hey, you know, my buddy Melissa does this thing pro bono, or what's the best way to introduce that?
Yeah, if you know any attorneys or know people who know attorneys, everybody knows an attorney, you know, just ask them if they do any pro bono work. And if they say yes, or they're interested in doing it, just, you know, please make an email intro to me and I'll take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you for expanding on that. Let's go to Krista and then Michael Katakis, please.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay, good. So I didn't think I would be introducing myself again, actually. So yeah, I'm Krista Janik, Wise Words That Matter, working with businesses and nonprofits to help them get noticed through writing and PR. I'm also a board member of Silo, which is a disability rights and advocacy organization. We provide information and referral and peer counseling, basically services so that people with disabilities can have the tools they need to be empowered in the community.
Thank you, Krista. Sorry to put you on the spot. This is like the more formal version of the introduction. I was kind of just letting us banter a little bit before. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being the alumni of our speakers. So staying along the disability focus, we'll go to Michael Katakis and then again to Roberta Rosenberg right after that. So please, Michael.
Good morning, Tommy. What's happening, buddy?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, brother. Again, my name is Michael Katakis. I'm the executive director at the Spirit of Huntington Art Center. We are a 501c3 that ignites the passion of students with special needs and veterans, you know, for creative expression that really does transform lives. We see it every day here. We're expanding and building a good-sized community art center that will include both recreation, vocation, and education for our population. So it's going to be really open to all ages, all abilities, all welcome. So thanks for having us on today, and we're excited to learn about all the great things that Lisa's going to share with us.
Great. Thank you for being here, Michael. Thanks for all you do. We will go to Roberta. Roberta, I've said that name. I'm having trouble with saying Roberta. Tommy. Roberta Rosenberg and then Frank Orzo, please.
Good morning, all. Happy to be here finally, after finally getting in. I am the director of Destination Accessible. We are a nonprofit that seeks to enrich the lives of people with mobility challenges. We believe that everybody deserves to have fun when going out, and we do this by providing free firsthand accessibility information about museums, theaters, parks, restaurants, kid-friendly places, any place people go for fun. And go to our website. We are strictly a website that provides that information. Lots of people think we are a transportation service or a travel agent. So we are not. I would ask, I need to find a new insurance agent. And I would be welcome. I would be happy to entertain any person that has someone for us that we could look to change our insurance.
What
Because I don't think-
what lines of insurance are you?
Well, so we have D&O insurance, and we have general liability, and we have volunteer insurance, and I think we have cyber insurance. I'm not quite sure, but it's costing me a fortune, which we don't have, and I am not feeling at this moment that the person is very responsive to our needs. So I'm looking for somebody who is willing to explain to me more, as a very non-knowledgeable person, what we really need and how much it's going to cost. And the other thing that we really need is some organization, I don't know if there is an organization, that will do an accessibility check for the website. I know that our website is not, I'll say, compliant with the ADA guidelines, which saddens me greatly, since this is what we do. And I'd like to find out more about it before diving into it head first without real knowledge.
I have some ideas, Roberta. Maybe we could talk after this call about some introductions specifically. After you said the ADA compliance piece, I have a friend who is both an insurance, so my firm, we do benefits, but he's a P&C shop, property and casualty, so D&O, general liability. And then also he's a cybersecurity professional as well, so might be able to help you out on that site issue as well. So we can talk offline, or somebody else in the room may have a similar introduction. So feel free to make those introductions. It's not just about who I know; it's about who do we all know. So that's important to be aware of.
I think, and one more thing, if I could, if anybody has any suggestions for places that we should visit, I mean, we visited a lot of them, but if anybody has some good restaurants that don't have to be fancy, but places that that are wheelchair accessible, that have good accessibility, or other interesting places, parks, etc. We try to get out to as many different ones as possible to write about them.
So let me ask you something. Is it like, if I see a place that looks extra focused on being accessible, that's something I should say, hey, do you know about this spot over here? Like, is that what you're saying?
I'd love, send me the info, because we will not write about any place that we have not personally visited. That's our sort of claim to fame, and we'll go check it out.
Cool. All right. So that's great. That's something for us to certainly look out for. All right. Very good.
There's a day of service for you, Tommy.
I was going to say it, but I didn't want to make it about that. But if you want me to run around and look at buildings and restaurants, I just have to put on my philanthropy and focus t-shirt. It's part of the uniform, but I'm happy to do that. So now it's in the recording. Melissa, you did it, counselor. It's out there now.
That's great. But what happens is, like, I'll say something to someone, we'll talk about a place that I've been, and they'll say, oh yeah, I was there, that was really good. Well, if someone would give us that information, it would be like so helpful that we didn't find it. I'm always looking for places.
Yeah.
And so if somebody would give us that information, it would be,
I'm going to plant the seed in my children's mind, because then my son Nicholas, every time, he sees something accessible, he's going to say, Dad, call your friend Roberta about that one. Like, that's kind of planting that seed. So very cool. All right. I'm breaking my own rules. We went super long on that one.
Sorry.
No, because it was good stuff. It's real. I mean, you have real needs, and you're providing great service. Frank Orzo gave you a lot of time to be in the batter's box. Frank, and then Marilyn. Are you ready, Frank?
I am. Here's my 14-second recap. I'm Frank Orzo, co-founder, along with my amazing partner and facilitator for today's session, Christine Deska, of Nonprofit Sector Strategies. We help nonprofits become more organized at their board level. And we're looking for any organizations, any nonprofits that are looking to improve the organization of their board and functions of the board of directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. And Ian posted something in the chat. Roberta, take a look. We are looking to add this plug-in ADA, so something accessible, something to look into. Thanks, Ian, for the share. Marilyn, and then Sue, please.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Marilyn Tickton, Court Furniture. We're a national company. I handle New York and New Jersey. We have office and residential furniture, and I specialize in nonprofits. We're here to support your mission, and we have availability of furniture. I'll put my information in the chat. Thanks so much.
Sue, and then Greg.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I am the Donor Relations Coordinator at Options for Community Living here in Ronkonkoma. And what we do is we provide housing for, well, supportive housing for individuals that have either mental illness or other chronic illnesses. So they do amazing work. I've been here just a short time, but we are always in need. We've been doing hygiene drives. We just finished our backpack drive. And of course, we'll be coming into the holidays and doing an adopt a family drive. We're also looking forward to, hopefully in September, doing our first in-person fundraiser at Governor's in Levittown. So we're gonna have a great night for comedy. So hope everybody can join us. Or if you have a corporate organization that would like to help us with any of our drives, we'd be thrilled to get, partner with you. So thank you.
Sue, thank you. Sue, what was the date on Governors again?
September 26th.
Okay. I need to do a day service with options, so we need to talk about that.
Okay, fabulous.
It's certainly not gonna be me getting up on stage telling jokes, although some people might think I'd probably be pretty good at it. I don't know if I got the guts. But
You can entertain us.
yeah, September 26th at Governors, very cool.
I'll send you the info.
Please do, yeah, and
Okay.
feel free to, if there's a link, feel free to share it in the chat right now, like people have been
I will.
doing. Real quick comment, Lisa, I looked through my notes of our initial conversation and I remembered, I saw my notes this morning. It's actually on my screen here about Clubhouse. I want to know more about Clubhouse. People keep telling me about Clubhouse. I went like 3 times. It's just that I want to learn more. So maybe that comes into Christine, maybe that comes into our conversation today, because it is certainly relevant in our society today. Somehow you guys moved around the screen. So let me find, I was going to Greg, and after Greg, Rebecca, please.
Greg Denweiler, treasurer. I empathize. I'm not going to be quite so heavy this time. We're a basically awareness training for human trafficking. And sorry, I thought it was registered, but I guess when it's early in Denver, things don't work so well.
That's okay. You're here now. Thanks for being here. So Rebecca, if you want to come on quick and kind of add anything to what Greg had to say regarding.
Yes, sorry,
That's okay.
unmute. Hi, Greg. Good morning. Thanks for joining us from Denver. Greg is on our board. I'm also on the board. We are a nonprofit in the space of, as Greg mentioned, human trafficking. We focus on prevention and training, and we have a great new platform that we've been using. We're in a lot of different sectors, including youth prevention work, transportation, apartments and housing, and we are continuing to develop our training and customize it for different sectors. And I apologize because I'm not used to giving the blurb for the organization.
It's all
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks for being
Happy
here.
to be here. I'm in New York, by the way, but the rest are scattered all over.
Well, if there's any, if there's ever any specific needs, you can always share that with Christine or I. If it's after the meeting, you can, if we have any connections to help out, we're happy to do so. All right, so thank you for both being here, and we're gonna go to Ian Wilder. Ian, I know you got some stuff going on over there, but can you come off and say hello quick? If not, just let me know you can.
Okay, let me see if I can give everybody a twofer.
Oh,
Say hi, Jacqueline.
God. Hello, Jacqueline.
Anyway, okay. Ian Wilder, Long Island Housing Services. Yeah, she's playing with her magnetic sand. We are an over 50-year-old civil rights organization that focuses in fair housing. If you saw the Newsday Long Island Divided series, that's the work we've been doing for decades, which is finding housing providers that are discriminating and getting them to stop. Some needs we have are, if I could be really needy, one, our Fire Housing Gala is the same night as Pro Bono Partnership. So that is October 6th. You can go to our website, LI Fair Housing, and get.org and see information. This does not work for Tommy because it's not a one-day thing, but we are always looking for fair housing testers. That requires training, a whole program, a whole thing. But we need people of every age range, every diversity, because we test for all kinds of things. And the thing,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. We have comparison testers. So we even need white males like me, or we could be testing for marital status. So you need a guy like me. So everybody can be a fair housing tester potentially. And the last thing is, and this is very particular, if anybody knows where I can get a really good quick tutorial on OBS Studio, which is for live streaming, I could really use help with that. Anyway.
Can you say that last part? OBS, like Oscar
Oscar, Bernie, Sam.
Studio. I'm not.
It's very basically someone who must know about live streaming will know where I can find something. Yeah, you can say hi real quick. Here, say hi on the microphone. Say hi. Okay, we're gonna go.
You can go, but I'll tell you, I'm gonna text my buddy Sam Leibowitz, who runs Talk Radio NYC, where I do my show. That's a live stream, so I don't know if there's anything he's involved with, but I'll text Sam and see if we can do that. Sure blurb with the group, Ian. Okay. Christine, tell us what that says. Ian, about what it takes. Okay. Yeah.
I just want to blurb so we can push it out. Even in our newsletter, we could include something like opportunities we typically do and get responses. And also I'm writing, there's a Facebook group called Your Thriving Nonprofit, which is a really active, vibrant group that I bet, Ian, if you're still able to listen, and Jacqueline, by the way, really stole the show there. Your Thriving Nonprofit, if you search within the group, I bet you would find something about the OBS Studio piece you mentioned. Not 100% sure, but I'm putting that into the chat.
Yep. And the network continues. This is the only meeting that I encourage multitasking at. But Krista jumps in and says, how about a blind housing tester? She might be interested. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to send that privately. And
it's all good. It's cool because it means we're doing stuff. We're networking. So Ian, when Jacqueline is doing something else, connect with Krista, please. All right, so there you go. And there's an email in the chat for you too. So very cool. All right, so Jemay, and then we will, unless I miss somebody, Jemay, and then Christine and I will move to the next part of the show with Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jemay. I'm with Tiegerman. We are a nonprofit organization that cares for individuals with developmental disabilities and autism. We go from preschool all the way up to adults. We have 4 schools, 2 locations in Queens, 2 locations in Glen Cove, and we have adult services in both counties as well. But we service individuals all throughout the 5 boroughs and Long Island. So they come in from everywhere. We have over 800 students. And my role is fund development, reaching out, connecting, finding new opportunities to promote our organization and let people know who we are, and to, encourage people to get to know who we are and join our events and potentially, hopefully, love us and want to donate to us. So that's my kind of deal. And if you have any questions, I'll add my little blurb to the chat. Thank you so much. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you so much. And thank you to shout out to my friend Frank Orzo for joining us at the golf outing for Tiegerman about 2 weeks ago. And
yes, thank you
Frank,
very much for Tommy and Frank. You guys are amazing. You do so much for all of our organizations, but when you actually physically come to an event that we host and you're a part of it and you bring extra people and then you put your money down, it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And either way, just seeing your smiley faces is really what makes my day. And honestly, if you haven't seen Tommy in his golf getup, you have to get on that. That's all I got to say about that.
All right. Well, maybe
the pictures are enough for me on that front. But I do want to say that
I could do share screen right now if you
want. Oh, no. Let me turn that off.
Save that for the end.
Let me disable that. No screen share. Well, I will tell you, Sue, maybe I can be a comedian at your at Governor's that night, maybe or at least a clown. But that was a special occasion, and thanks, Jermaine. You guys hosted a great show, and I want to send a shout out quick to Frank, because Frank brought a foursome of folks, and they actually won. They won the whole thing. So then they got, they won some money, got to spend some money in the pro shop, and I won a bike and a TV. But to your point, I bought a lot of raffles, so that's why I think I won. All right, so let's move on. I think unless I didn't miss anybody, I don't think I did. So we're gonna move on to the featured presentation. So this is the part of the show where Christine really takes over and leads the interview with our featured guest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do quick bio on Christine, quick bio on Lisa, so I can get out of the way and let them take it away. So you may have heard this stuff before about Christine, but as Frank says earlier, she's the co-founder of Nonprofit Sector Strategies, which is a public benefit corporation dedicated to helping nonprofits maximize mission impact. Their organization does both strategic planning and board management services, as well as, you may have heard the aforementioned Bell's Board, which is a board management software platform that they created, which helps boards to be more efficient, more effective. And it's really resulted out of the fact of them going to the market on behalf of an organization they were involved with together and saying, there is not the right solution in the market. And like entrepreneurs do, they created it to make an impact for the sector. Her background, she's got a number of years working in the nonprofit sector, the Columbus Citizens Foundation, as the director of programming for 2 years, and then also spent a lot of time at AARP earlier in her career. And she currently sits on the board of Hunger Solutions New York, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the alleviation of hunger throughout New York State, which the hunger issue is something you guys don't want me to get on a tangent about because it's a tragic situation. So Christine, thank you for your service and what you do. And thank you for being my teammate and partner in this, because you make me better in what we do here together. So thanks. All right. And let's go to Lisa now. So I had to, let's just be real. I had to ask Lisa when we got on this call. I was like, what's that? How did you spell that Sudoku jar? And she's like, okay, some of my friends are now getting it. It's a Sadaka jar, correct, Lisa? Did I do better?
You did great.
Am I closer now? And
Yeah.
I spelled right in my notes, because when we all met, Christine, Lisa, and I, a few weeks back, what Lisa shared with us, and it's a question I ask all the time when we're hanging out with my nonprofit friends, and especially when I have somebody on my show, it's what drew you to nonprofit? What drew you to service work? Why did you become involved? And Lisa shared with us that day that her grandparents survived the Holocaust and were very service-minded and had a tzedakah jar and took pride in that jar, and then anonymously donated money to organizations that were important to them. It's little acts like that, I think, that really drive us to this type of work and make us think about this type of work. So I felt that anecdote would be fun to share. Plus, I always think it's cute when I don't understand words and then I do understand words. So that's fun too. So thank you, Lisa. So let me give a really quick background and then Christine will take it away. In nearly 10 years of consulting, Lisa has worked with over 40 clients to raise more than $30 million. She's known especially for her ability to turn complicated ideas into easy and executable solutions. She believes that focusing on the items that matter is how we will accomplish more while working less. There's something I can learn about.
Yeah. Oh, you look so cute with a hat.
Amy.
Good.
Amy, I'm going to mute you.
Meeting this.
Oh, yeah. Now I lost my Word document. All right, cool. Lisa's the creator of Plans That Produce, which is an online course, which, if I'm not mistaken, is involved with the University of Chicago, right? Where some of the work is done there.
Two separate things. This online course is not, but yeah.
Online course is not, but the other work is with the University of Chicago. Yeah. And in her current role as vice president of Evolve Giving Group, she works on client projects and oversees the firm's innovation vertical. So we're going to talk a lot about innovation today. And I will just say finally that Lisa lives in the Chicago suburbs with her husband and their 2 small children. And she loves to try new restaurants and is always thinking about the next travel destination. So if you see any accessible restaurants in Chicago, you got to tell Roberta Rosenberg about those. And then she can put those on. Because look, Roberta, if we got to fly out to Chicago to check out restaurants, we got to do what we got to do. You want to talk about it? So that's a week of service. I might get 7 days out of that one. That would be good. I'm just trying to have fun and be silly. And I appreciate you guys allowing me to do that. Lisa and Christine, will you please take it away and start this conversation?
Thanks, Tommy. Good morning. I think we have a great vibe going because it's the end of summer, isn't it? I mean, I don't think any of us can really believe it's the end of summer, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and we're all maybe a little bit delirious. I know just getting to my desk to sit down, I think I smashed 3 Cheerios on my kitchen floors, and that's my life right now with the children that I have. So we are so excited to have Lisa here this morning. And since this is all about connecting and supporting each other, I'll just tell you all how I met Lisa. So I had hosted a webinar through the Nonprofit Resource Hub, which is a great group to be a part of. If you haven't heard of it, hopefully we can drop a link about the Nonprofit Resource Hub. So I hosted an event on board management and fundraising, and then someone who listened to that event, who's an incredible entrepreneur and social enterprise guru, said, oh, you know, do you have connections in Chicago? And I said, not really. And he said, oh, you have to know Lisa, and you have to know Lisa's former partner. And so Lisa and I connected right away. I got a great vibe from her. She has so much knowledge to share with us. But what really struck a chord with me in speaking with Lisa is that she is firmly focused on this innovation vertical of her consulting firm. And that's a really unique position to even hold, right? Not many firms can kind of carve out space to focus on innovation. So it's really interesting. And of course, in addition, her background in fundraising strategies, and as we saw in the chat, she's even hosting governance talks weekly. We can all learn about Clubhouse. I'm ashamed to say I don't even know what it is. And maybe I'm not alone in that, because my life has been a sleepless whirlwind for the past 16 months. So I'm excited to learn about all of this. So welcome, Lisa. I wish we had more folks on today to hear this live, but I know a lot of people messaged me after. We had about 35, I think, RSVPs, but I know end of August. So I know that we'll be pushing this out after. Yeah, it's tough this time of year. But Tommy and I don't stop. We don't want to give anyone a month off, not even as the holidays are approaching. So welcome to the Roundtable family, Lisa. We hope we can get more folks from Chicago coming on now that we've got you. And so tell us in your own words about your background and how did you find your way to your firm, Evolve Giving Group?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Christine and Tommy, so much for having me, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. I tend to talk a little bit quickly, which in an East Coast audience works well, but if I am talking too fast, just let me know and I will slow down. So I got my start in fundraising really in high school. I ran for my high school. We do a month-long sort of fundraising program, and I ran that for 2 years, and it was awesome. And we set records each year, which was really fun. And I sort of got that bug in me, right? And it was already instilled in me from my grandparents, as you heard from Tommy earlier, and their passion for fundraising. And so it was always something that I saw growing up. Did political fundraising in college. I went to the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and then came back, and I actually went into program in the nonprofit space first, working for the overnight camp that I grew up at, and then knew I wanted to get back into fundraising. And I wasn't quite sure, many of you who are in the fundraising space probably know that there's sort of like individual gifts or major gifts or events, and sometimes you have to choose where you're going to go, especially if you really want mentorship and the ability to go Badgers, Amy, and the ability to advance within an organization, which was something that was really important to me. And I didn't know that. So I found this consulting firm. I had a friend who had worked there at the time, and she said, send me your resume, let's talk. And I really just reached out to her to say, like, can you talk me through these different options and help me figure out what I might like? At the end of the day, I ended up going to the consulting firm, and 9.5 years later, here I am. And I've tried sort of everything, and I figured out that that world is really good for me. I'm somebody who gets bored sort of quickly. And so the ability to work with multiple clients and on multiple projects at any given time, and to continually be meeting people in this space is something that's really important to me, and that I find really fun. And I've always had this sort of like innovation mindset, Christine. And so this wasn't something that the firm always had, this innovation vertical. It's actually something that has happened for us in the past, probably like 1.5 years or so. And, but even within that, I would be iterating on projects. I started a senior leadership team at the firm. I sort of forced us to think about things in new and different ways. And so finally we came to this decision as we rethought the verticals and the senior leadership team and who was going to oversee what. We really decided this is something that's important to us, right? Nonprofits, and it sort of came out of the pandemic, quite honestly, too. Nonprofits that weren't innovating were sort of falling off. They weren't able to be as successful. They weren't able to stick around. And even as a firm, we really wanted to think about how do we continue to look at gaps in the marketplace, at needs that organizations are having, and how can we begin to fulfill those for people in a meaningful way. So
It's so exciting. It really is. I think it's something that many of us associate with the corporate world, with how businesses approach their growth strategies. And sometimes I think nonprofits think that those strategies aren't available to them due to resource constraints or due to all sorts of different things. What I'm really excited about today is for us to kind of hear some ways that nonprofits not only do this, but do this really well, and why it's important and why it's going to ensure that many nonprofits are sustainable well beyond where they might be positioned thus far. All right, so let's jump in then. So how do you define innovation? I don't think it's something that many nonprofits even are able to take a breath and have a discussion about. I mean, a lot of organizations say, you know, we can't even make time for our strategic planning, even though we all know how important that is. But I'm glad that today we can focus on something like this and impart some ideas of new approaches. So how do you define innovation? And why do you think it's an important ingredient for organizations to be more sustainable?
yeah, so great question. So there's a ton of different ways we can define innovation. And I think when most people think about innovation, they think about Google, or they think about going to space, or they think about these sort of big innovation ideas and these entire teams or departments, you know, that exist at these large companies that are really under lock and key, right? Sort of thinking about like, what is the next big thing? And that, of course, is one way to think about innovation. But the New Zealand government has a quote about how they define innovation that actually is my favorite. And so I wrote it down so that I wouldn't butcher it. But they say that innovation is the creation, development, and implementation of a new product, process, or service with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or competitive advantage. And there's a lot of pieces that I like about this, right? So it sort of covers that new product or new service piece, which I think is the typical mindset of how people think about innovation. But it also covers the piece that I think is most advantageous to nonprofits, which is this process piece. So many nonprofits don't have processes for different things, and they do things differently all the time. And the reality is, in any nonprofit, in any business, in any organization, there are tons of things that we do all of the time and that we do repetitively. And if we could just stop and write down, here's the 5 steps that it takes me to do this, and then somebody doesn't have to think about it all of the time, it becomes muscle memory as to how to do those things, and it's able to survive from one person to another. So take a database, for example. I'm sure you've all worked at an organization, or maybe do, where you have a database that, quite honestly, you can't get out of it what you need to, right? And I have this saying, garbage in, garbage out. And I really think that this is true. But the reality is too, if you had one person who is entering information in a specific way, that person leaves your organization, there's no paper trail or process of how things were entered. Somebody new comes in, they just start doing it their own way. This is not anybody's fault. This is just the reality of life. If instead you had a data processes and procedures document or a manual or something that said, this is how we track these different pieces, now you can have consistency over time and things become much better. What happens when mail comes into your office, right? There's all of these really duplicative things. What's the process for recording gifts or sending out acknowledgement letters? And there's a ton of these things. So this definition highlights the process piece of it, which I think is one of the places where nonprofits can innovate. Also, I'm a big believer that internal infrastructure is a big pain point for a lot of nonprofits. And I really think of internal infrastructure like a pair of running shoes. So just bear with me for 1 second on the analogy. But if you think, if any of you are runners or have worn a bad pair of shoes to run, right? You roll your ankle, you get shin splints, you hurt yourself in some sort of way. But a good pair of running shoes quite literally makes it easier to run and keeps you moving forward. And internal infrastructure is a lot the same when it comes to nonprofits. So how do we begin to take some of those things that happen in the outside world and put them into practice for us in a systematized way? And even those changes are innovation, right? They are helping move us along to a better place. So there may be not the sexy ways that we think about innovation, but they are innovation that free up, quite honestly, bandwidth and brain space for us to be able to think about these other more sexy, more interesting ways that we can innovate at our organization. So that is, I guess, sort of what I would say about the definition of innovation. One other thing I want to add to that piece is that I think innovation is about flipping your assumptions. So we all come with a set of assumptions or a set of ideas based in reality, based in the past, based in how we've seen things, based in how we were raised, right? We assume maybe that people want something, or we assume that this is the way that we've always done something, so this is the way that it will continue to work. But what would happen if we didn't assume? What would happen if instead we tried something, right? So Christine and Frank, I'm going to take a leap of faith here that maybe when you developed Bell's boards, you did that by talking to people and figuring out what it is they wanted, or you beta tested that with a small group and you took the feedback and you use that to iterate, right? So these are very typical processes in the tech world. If we're developing something, they almost never happen in the nonprofit world. We develop a gala, we develop a golf outing, we create a stewardship calendar for the year, and we sort of, based on a set of assumptions or based on what we've seen other organizations do, we think this is what people want, and we put it out there. Right? But we don't necessarily in the same way go and do a listening tour, right? We don't go and talk to 10 people and ask what they want and use that to inform our information. We don't soft launch something in year one and see how people respond or how many people show up and then iterate it before we send out a big mailing about it, right? And so I think there's some of these practices that are so obvious maybe in the for-profit world or in places that have really strong backgrounds of innovation that are easily adaptable to the nonprofit world that would also, in an easy way, actually make our lives easier in the nonprofit world and make us more successful. So I guess that's a lot by way of definition, and not only definition, but hopefully, Christine, that answers your question.
I absolutely love everything that you're saying. I think it's such a great opportunity to kind of reset, take a look at all of our programs. I'm sure those of you listening are thinking, wait a minute, should we have rolled that program out like this? Or, oh, we're rolling out a program, we're going back from virtual to in-person. Should we, should we talk to the people we're serving a little bit before we push ahead? Because it's easy to get caught up in a deadline or something that doesn't give us those moments to do a quick beta test, to do all of those things. And you learn so much from that. I mean, the amount we learned from our initial Bell's board users was incredible. And it's so important to, let your clients know you're hearing them and serving them. Did we lose someone?
I think Tommy had a question.
I had a question, but we
go ahead, Tommy.
Everything's fine. Don't worry about the tech.
I just heard a big ding.
Yeah.
I have a comment. May I?
Can I just jump in, Frank, real quick? Can I just finish? Because I just wanted to say this. I think in my experience, the pandemic is one of these things that sort of stopped a lot of the things we were doing. Like, we did things the way because we thought they were the way, but I think the big pause gave us the opportunity to say, well, maybe that's not the way to do it. Well, we've been doing this for 25 years. Well, great. Maybe it's not right anymore. I mean, I know personally. Right. We know the joke about me not leaving my attic, but the point is, it's become very efficient. Zoom has become efficient and effective. As much as I want to be at the gala, I know some organizations where the virtual gala is bringing in numbers. Some it's not. I know that, but it's bringing in the numbers and it works. And the lift was much lower, right? So it's like, it's great, Lisa. Just I know Frank has a comment too, but just great that we gotta sometimes just hold on a second. Let's see, even on this project here, the nonprofit round, Christine and I are iterating, going, well, should we do this? What about this? What about this? Is this is just a thing, just a little project, but you have to evaluate. Frank, please.
Lisa, you hit the nail on the head talking about process. When we built Bell's board, my partner Christine interviewed 25 nonprofits before we put any code down on in our machine. So you're right on. Asking what's needed is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love, Lisa, what you said about freeing up bandwidth and brain space. Who doesn't need that these days? Zoom is wonderful, but I think it's also made all of us take on triple the number of meetings because there's no commuting time. So we literally have very little downtime for our brains to recover. And so the efficiencies that can be put in place can be really instrumental. I want to ask you, so you alluded to some of this in your initial answer. what makes a nonprofit innovative? And I shared this quote with you. I recently read that innovation is uncomfortable, intimidating, unpredictable, and difficult to manage. Do you agree? And let me just leave it at that, because there were other questions, but I think I'd like to get your take on that piece, because it goes back to that perception.
Yeah, and I love this quote that you shared, Christine. Innovation is uncomfortable, intimidating, unpredictable, and difficult to manage. And it is. I think any change is uncomfortable and intimidating and unpredictable, right? And we've been living in that for the past 18 months, in this space of not sort of knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, or thinking that we're almost done with something and then being back sort of in the throes of it again. And the same is true with innovation. But I think what's different is that innovation can also be really exciting, right? And it doesn't have to be intimidating when it comes from the right sort of place. So listen, if you were placed in a spot where somebody said, okay, it's your job to come in and to innovate all of this, and if that's not how your brain works, of course that's intimidating, and of course that's uncomfortable. But if you are new, think about a time when you were new and you went into an organization and you took the first couple months to really just see what was going on at the organization and to learn. I'm sure inevitably as part of that, you saw a system that maybe wasn't working as it could work, right? Or you maybe heard about an event or a program the organization was doing that wasn't having a good ROI or that wasn't effective, and you made suggestions, right? All of that is innovation. So again, this comes down to, like, how do we define innovation? How do we talk about it? And I think when you're new to an organization, you have fresh eyes, it's really easy to come in and to be innovative. When you have been somewhere for 10 years, and Tommy said this, and I think this is like the innovation buzzkill, right? This is the way we've always done it. I hate that saying. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. Just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that that's a good way to do it, or doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it, or the way that we should be doing it, or that we couldn't be doing it better, right? And so to me, that's just like a total buzzkill. And when that is the culture or the mentality somewhere, and when that's perpetuated up and down and sideways within the organization, there really isn't a culture or a room or a way to innovate. But I think innovation is most easily seen when someone new comes into an organization, and just by some of those small changes that happen on a daily basis. I also think that if I once heard this quote, or someone, well, I'll tell you actually what happened. In my first interview, when I was going to try to work for my overnight camp, just as a counselor, like I was 17, 18 years old. And I remember the camp director said to me, "Tell me about your friends." And I thought, well, that's an odd question. And so I did. I told him about my friends. And at the end of that, I said, "Can I ask you why you asked that?" And he said, "People usually surround themselves with people who are like them and have similar values to them." And I think this is so true, right? But the 17 or 18-year-old version of myself just didn't know that or understand that at that point in my life. But what I have come to see since is, I think one of the, like, that's very true for me in my life, right? So I am usually surrounded by entrepreneurs, by people who are starting businesses, by people who are in other innovative roles, who like to think creatively, who aren't happy with the status quo. And this is one of the things that excites me, that I feed off of the energies that I have. And so I think people who are interested in innovation have to find a partner in their organization of somebody else who thinks that way, and who they can bounce ideas off of, and who that can become exciting and fun for them to think about things that way, versus being surrounded by this culture of this is the way we've always done it.
I think that's such great advice, and a great way for nonprofit staffers, all the directors of development that we have as part of our roundtable family, to think about that, because we can at some point in our career feel kind of, we would like to be doing these things, but we haven't quite found that partner within our organization to really open us up to make that sort of impact. I think that's a really great way to consider helping your organization think about things and streamline processes and do those and make those improvements. Where do you think an innovation process should start at an organization? Does it need to be top down? And this kind of goes back to what you were just saying. Do you think it needs to start at the top, or is this something that, yeah, go ahead. You gave some great examples already.
I don't think it needs to start at the top. I think that if the person at the top ultimately isn't on board or isn't open to it, then it's you might be able to make small incremental changes, or you might be able to innovate incrementally, but you won't be able to sort of make a big sweeping change because that of course takes buy-in in a large way. But I don't think that means you can't get there. And so I will, I'll just sort of share an example. So I have for the past maybe, I don't know, 9 months or so been talking about the fact that at the senior leadership level at our firm, we need additional support. None of us have assistants, none of us have VAs, anything like that. And we're sort of bogged down in some of the day-to-day work of our own scheduling or our own, just like a lot of those types of pieces that take us away from our zone of genius, okay? That take us away from really either doing business development or managing clients or speaking at different things or, doing the pieces that I think are the more important pieces of it. And so I've been talking about this for a while, that we need to get VAs and people can't rate this as change, and people don't necessarily like change, and it makes them nervous. And so everybody comes to this with a different perspective. And at first, a couple of the other people on the senior leadership team said, like, no way, that's not helpful for us. I don't want somebody to help me in those ways. I want to be able to manage everything in my portfolio by myself. I want to do all of this. And I said, okay, you don't have to do that, right? So I started using Calendly. I got some other people onto Calendly, some of these systems that can help automate things and make things different. And not everybody wanted to do that, and that's fine. As of about a week ago, everybody on the senior leadership team now has a VA. And this week on our senior leadership team meeting, we start that meeting by going around and everybody shares a win, a challenge, and a target. 3 of the 5 people who are newer to having a VA, their win was all their VA. Right. So this is an example of and how their VA is now like in their life in a really helpful way and in their inbox and managing their calendar and freeing up their time. And they have all this time to focus on these other things that they never even realized how much being in the weeds was sort of affecting them from being able to do these other pieces. Right. And so this is an example of this change didn't necessarily come from the top, wasn't necessarily fully endorsed by the top at the beginning, but that when you continue also, if you really believe in something, if you continue to repeat it, if you get some people on board, if you continue to share how it will positively make change, you can sometimes over time get people there. So you have to just pick, you can't do that with everything, right? But you have to pick which are the important pieces that are really going to drive change that I want to continue to push, and which of these things maybe do I want to put on a shelf for right now and revisit in whatever period of time.
I love that. And I really love how your team comes together with the win, the challenge, and the target. I think that could really, I think I would want to do that within the next, a next strategic planning process, kind of bring people together in that regard, because it brings out what's on our plates. And we can then help each other with with overcoming those challenges. That's really a smart approach. So here we are, right? It's almost September. School's about to start or has started, and there's so much uncertainty. We thought this was our post-pandemic timeframe, and now we are, I think, all very much in flux. And so, as I think my partner Frank says often, crisis breeds opportunity, or in some way he says that. And so I'm guessing that could also apply to a new innovative approach. So give us some hope here.
Yeah.
What opportunities do you see for nonprofits in this time of uncertainty and flux?
Yeah. So I think I'm actually going to go somewhere where you probably aren't expecting me to go first, Christine. But I also go back to that. I think that the number one opportunity that we have as a world right now, but definitely in the business world as well, is the opportunity to care about people differently. That we are seeing the first time this pandemic started, people sort of had visceral reactions to, what do you mean I have to stay home? What do you mean I can't see people? And there was sadness and there was anxiety and there was anger around all of that, right? The second time that we're sort of coming into this, I think the mental health struggle is real at the moment. And I just want to name that because I think it's one of those things that people feel ashamed to talk about or embarrassed to admit, that maybe there's not as much pep in their step today, or they're feeling a little bit down. And I think the way that we as leaders show our staff, our program participants, our donors, that we're here for them and that we care about them on a really human level is going to set apart all of us, right? Just as people, as individuals, but especially as leaders. during this time. And so I would encourage all of you to really take a step back and think about that. Is there somebody on your team who seems to be struggling or who maybe isn't performing as well as they used to perform? And how can you check in and see what's going on in their lives and what they might need? Or, you know, my kids started school on Monday, and on Tuesday, there was an exposure in my son's classroom. On Wednesday, we got a note from the school that a kid in a different classroom tested positive, right? So they're home now for the rest of the week. And that's throwing a wrench in our lives, but we're figuring it out. But just that understanding, that being really empathetic piece of it, I think is really important. How can we use this as an opportunity to call our donors and just check in with them, right? This is a really great stewardship touch point. How are you doing? I know that times are rough. Is there anything I can do to support you? The way that Tommy starts these meetings, right? Do you have an ask? Do you have a need? How can we be there for you? How can we take what Tommy models so beautifully in this space and use that with our staff and with our communities and bring them closer to us? So that's sort of the first piece of this. And I would say within that too, listen, there was a lot of companies at the start of this that thought, well, we can never be remote. That's just not how we work, right? My husband used to work for one of those companies, had to be at his desk from 8:30 to 5:30 every single day. And then they shut down overnight and they all got their work done and they all were super successful. And I know that's not true of every company or every organization, but how can we have compassion for people? How can we be a little bit more accommodating, a little bit more flexible, sort of moving forward? Another big opportunity that I'm seeing, and Tommy touched a little bit on this too, with, I think it was Tommy, with the virtual gala piece of it, is the ability to reach a wider audience. So we know that through virtual programming, we've been able to include additional people that we have that, and it's not only about including additional people because they are far away from us physically, or they can't drive, they can't whatever. Think about this. At the end of the day, you're running from a work meeting and you're trying to go somewhere else, right? Or you have to get your kids from school or put dinner on the table or take them to an activity. And then you still have to drive to whatever it is, or you have to be able to change, right? So there's just these extra time factors. But if all you have to do is you're already home and you just have to open your computer and pop onto something, this now gives an extra group of people a way to participate in a different way that they might not be able to physically get there, but they can still tune in. Now, I'm not here to say that you should replace everything virtually. I think people want to connect more than ever. I think there are a lot of things that just don't replace in-person connectivity. But I think there's also a time and a place for continuing certain things virtually and thinking about it in that way and connecting on sort of a broader and larger scale. And I would continue to push us to think about that, as well. The other opportunity, hold on, I'm just looking at my notes. National reach, we talked about the ability to be more nimble and adaptive, I think is really important too. I think, so I have a lot of friends who work at the university level and they have donors who are all across the country. They're talking a lot about budgets, and they used to have these huge lines in their budget to travel and to go meet with donors and to go do all these different things that they're now talking about reallocating in a lot of ways. So as you look at your budget moving forward and maybe some tight money that you had, right? Are there ways to think about that a little bit differently and to reallocate some of those pieces? Yesterday, someone also told me about, and I just want to mention this before I forget, even though it's not totally part of this question. So I'm sure all of you knew about PPP, but there is an employee retention credit as well. And apparently there's like $80 million or something like that hasn't been accessed yet because people just don't know to apply for this employee retention credit. But you can essentially get, I think, $7,000 per quarter for employees that you've retained. So it's up to like $28,000 per employee if you qualify for this. So I can send around a link for it, but I would just encourage people to look into that, because this could be a really great addition to people's budgets as well. So does that help, Christine, answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I was just reading what Tommy was adding into the chat here, and I'm kind of nodding. The mental health piece, I think, resonates with all of us, as well as Tommy. This is a great point. Virtual gala tickets are less expensive. Therefore, more people who would have been that would have been a barrier to attend. So it's a broader audience. But going back to what Lisa said, it doesn't mean it's always going to work. There's a lot of other factors to really make a virtual event engaging and successful.
And one thing
but
I'll
this
add to
is
that,
a-
one thing I'll add to that, Christine, is that because I know when people were going through, there was a couple people who said we have multiple like field offices or, you know, different parts of the organization. One of our clients, they have a New York chapter, a Chicago chapter, LA chapter, Boston chapter, Toronto chapter, and they each used to put on their own gala every year. In the past 2 years, what they've done is they've combined into one organization-wide virtual gala. They still have an honoree from each of those cities, right? But so now they can bring in, like I think they had Jason Alexander, right? Either this year or last year, I can't remember, but they can bring in a much bigger talent because they're combining from all of these cities the budget to put on this bigger sort of event. And they are, instead of every city having to dedicate all of the resources to planning of it, they all are dedicating a little time to their city. And then they are having sort of one person manage the logistics for all of the cities. And that's cutting down a lot for them from that perspective. So how can we think creatively if we are a multi-chapter organization about different ways to come together potentially?
Absolutely. That's such a great example. And that's a really great segue into the next question. And so we know that, you know, from your earliest moments, you have been giving back and fundraising. From your very first job, it sounds like you were raising money, or even in high school.
Yeah.
So what innovative approaches do you see nonprofits taking now with regard to fundraising? Maybe you could share a story about a client or two who's been doing something successfully in this quote unquote post-pandemic environment that we're in.
Yeah. So I'm actually a big believer in the fundamentals of fundraising. I think major gifts wins almost every time over something like crowdfunding or anything else, just because of, we often don't, when we think about ROI, we don't factor staff time into that. And I think that's such a huge miscalculation that for each of these different initiatives we do, there is an amount of staff time it takes to implement on those. And when we don't factor that into the cost of that activity and into then the net profit of that activity, then we're not really looking at the full picture of this. But I think there's sort of two thoughts that I would share here. So one is the organizations that are being bold and unapologetic are winning out. So there were a lot of organizations that at the beginning of this, and even so well into it, that were very timid about going to their donors and expressing their need because people were in a hard time or they didn't know what was going on for them. But the reality is the people who are closest to you and know you and love your organization, still know and love your organization, and they want to know what your needs are. And so if you can go to them in a way that expresses what the needs are, the impact that they can have, they still want to be involved in that. So I think that if you think about the needs, if you think about this as a Venn diagram with the needs of the organization and the philanthropic interests of the individual, where the overlap is in that Venn diagram, those are the people you're looking for, right? That's your sweet spot as an organization of who wants to support you. And I think if anybody knows Vic Harrison from Charity Water, she talks about this in a really positive sort of way. She says that the reason that Charity Water was so successful isn't because it was this like new or novel idea or anything that was so different from what existed out there. But the reason that it was so successful was because they went out and talked about it with excitement in a way that other people then wanted to join in and be part of that, they were sort of contagious in how they talked about it and other people wanted to get in. So I think that's like one big piece I would say is be bold and be unapologetic. And I think the other big thing I'll say is think differently about partnerships. So especially today, corporations have, and even grant funders, right, and individuals, I think there is an abundance of money out there to be had. I don't believe in this competition of, well, if they give to somebody else, they're not going to give to us. People will give where they want to give and how they want to give. But what if we think about our partnerships a little differently? So think about your gala, for example, or your golf outing. I'm sure you have a list that at $10,000, you get this, and at $5,000, you get that, and it's really standardized, okay? Not everybody wants to have to fill a table at a gala. Now, if I own a business or a bank or whatever, and I buy a table at scale, now I have to go send out an email. I have to cajole people to come. I have to sort of manage this whole process. Like that's a lot of work. That's not necessarily great for me. Plus, are the people going to just go and talk to their friends, or are they actually going to go and network in the way that I want them to? Am I actually getting the visibility that I want from that? And is that beneficial to me? But what if we thought about partnerships differently? What if we really tried to customize our partnerships to be a win-win opportunity, right? And one of the ways I've been thinking about this a lot lately is what if we created a menu? Like think about A, B, C, D, right? And with a bunch of different options under each one. And so if I sponsor at $5,000, I get to pick 2 C's and a B, or 2 C's, right? If I sponsor at $10,000, I get to pick 2 C's and a B. If I sponsor at $20,000, I get to pick 2 B's and an A, right? And obviously the things that fall under those categories offer different amounts of value, right? But then they can all be customized. So maybe one is an opportunity for a speaking engagement. And then we work with those donors to figure out, well, what audience do you want to be speaking in front of? Or what skills or expertise do you have where it makes sense for us to plug you in? Or, and yes, that takes a little bit more work on our end. But I wonder if that little bit of extra work actually builds relationships in a more meaningful way and gets people more of what they want, which then breeds longevity with our organization, right? So if we're actually giving them what they need and what they want, if we're looking at businesses as having a bottom line interest, right, of having needs that they need to meet as a business, and we are being a partner in helping them fulfill that, either get in front of the audience that they need to get in front of, or any other business need that they might have, that is a true partnership. And I would just really encourage us to sort of flip that piece on its head. And I've heard from a lot of people during this time about that. The other thing that I think is sort of unique, and I know this has come up a couple times too, so I'll just sort of throw it in here, is platforms like Clubhouse, right? And so what is Clubhouse? It's sort of come up. It's not in the nonprofit world as much yet as I hope that it one day will be, but Clubhouse is an audio only app that is sort of a cross between a podcast and a Zoom, but you don't see anybody. So like one of the things I like is I can throw my hair on the top of my head at 8 o'clock at night in my pajamas and not have to see anybody and pop on Clubhouse, and nobody knows that. And I can have an interesting conversation with a group of people because no one can see me. And so that's a nice piece of it too. When you go on, there is like a stage. And so people on the stage are speaking, and you can go onto the stage, you can ask questions, you can participate in the conversation, or you can be in sort of the listening lounge, as one of my friends calls it, and just listen to the conversation in the same way that you would listen to a podcast. It has a very fluid culture where you can pop in and pop out. You could listen to them for 5 minutes and then go to a different room, or hop off because your phone rings or something comes up that you need to go handle. But there's a ton of different conversations that are happening on a variety of different topics within the platform, and you can start your own. And I think it's been a really great way to build. We've been building a nonprofit community on there and hosting a variety of different rooms. So for example, on Wednesday afternoon, I host a Building Better Boards room. And it's been a really fascinating way to talk about how do we find the right board members, and what does it mean to make our board more equitable, and any sort of topics or questions that people have right now, and to build community. And people have been using it to do different sorts of fundraising activities and for all sorts of things. So I think another thing the pandemic has sort of allowed us to do, and that's been innovative, is to just connect with people differently and to build networks maybe outside of, and even me with you today, right? If you were doing this in person in New York, I probably wouldn't be able to join you unless I was out there for something else. But given that we're not in an only in-person world right now, there are those opportunities for different connections and different collaborations.
I love it. I love the idea of not being on a video for a meeting. It's kind of a refreshing approach at this point, because it's a different level of energy that you have to expend when you're on a video. And it takes a toll on all of us. We all have that Zoom fatigue that sets in. So that's probably why Clubhouse is going to be picking up steam. I can't wait to download the app and find you. What time on Wednesday afternoon?
It's at 5 p.m. Eastern, the room.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope you will join us. We'd love to have you come speak and talk about Bell's Board, and talk about some of the different things that you're doing in the board space. And I think it would be really great.
Wonderful. I'd love to hear the conversations that are happening. It's such a hot topic.
Frank looks excited, ladies.
Yes, he does. Yes.
Very fired up about that.
Frank's downloading Clubhouse right now.
Is that 5 o'clock East Coast time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. So we've talked a bit about the virtual format that we're all kind of operating in half the time, all the time. Some of us have gone back into the field and now might be trying to figure out how to move forward into the fall. But do you see this as a jumping off point for a different approach to programming? It sounds like we're all kind of agreeing that it is, but I don't know if you want to talk more about that kind of intersection of technology and innovation when it comes to the nonprofit space.
Yeah, so I think the programming piece we sort of already touched on. I think the intersection of technology, where I'll say is that we're seeing how important it is to make things easy on people and even to iterate on that. And Christine, I don't know if this was before you came on or not, but Tommy was sort of asking about people's experience with this new platform that he was trying to get people registered, and he was asking for feedback on that. And then him and his assistant were talking about how some changes they're going to make for the future, right? So this is a really great example to say that people are trying new things. They're trying to make it easy on people. Sometimes it's working really well right off the bat. Sometimes we are finding pieces that maybe aren't working as well, and we're iterating on those to make those work better. And I, have no doubt that next month it will be an even smoother process than it already was this month. And I think that's just a really important example to sort of highlight what we need to be doing right now, right? It needs to be easy for people to register for programming. It needs to be mobile friendly because we know that people are on their phones. We need to have it easy for people to donate, right? So what does it mean to be giving online, or to have text to pledge, or Apple Pay or Google Pay, where all I have to do is like double click the side of my phone and I can make my gift. And there's all sorts of platforms out there now that have integrated with Apple Pay and Google Pay and are allowing for that. So how are we in this virtual world making it easy on people to interact with us? And the other thing that I would think about here is an infrastructure sort of piece of it, right? And we talked a little bit about this as well, but what do we need to do internally so that our organizations can be friendly to remote workers, so that when somebody's kids are out of school, as they inevitably will be at some point this year, right? Those people can be successful at home, and we've already iterated in these ways. Or if we want to expand our team so that they're not just in the area where, in the physical area where our office is, do we need systems like Dropbox or Google Docs, or do we have an online database that people can access if they're not in the office? So I think those are some of the pieces that we're also seeing in terms of how technology allows us to be innovative in the nonprofit sector and to make things easy on people to participate in the ways that they want to. And I think the programming piece we talked about, like there is a hybrid, there is an opportunity for in-person, there is an opportunity to still keep certain things remote. Or to still keep certain things virtual. And I think over time, we will continue to hone what that looks like.
Absolutely. You make such great points. I mean, just thinking of things in terms of trying to make it easier on people, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we stop there and think about some of the work that we're doing, some of the programs we're pushing out, I'm sure we can all think of a few ways we could be doing something a little bit differently, a little bit more efficiently. Processes aren't always fun to think about, but my goodness, when you can remove 2 steps out of 7, you feel that time savings, and you feel, I think, really rewarded going forward to have that kind of extra space to really work on your mission.
Totally. And Christine, I'll add just one piece to that, sorry, and then I'll let you keep going. But there was a bunch of research done a few years ago about donation pages online and the number of fields that people were asking for on the donation page. And I'm not going to say the exact stats. I don't remember off the top of my head, but basically, like if you had 3 fields or under, there was a significant increase in the number of people who actually went through with making the donations. And as you kept adding fields to the donation page, more and more people dropped off, right? And whether this was that they didn't want to give all that information, or that they got busy in the middle of it, or that it was hard to do on their phone, or whatever the case was. So I think these are also things to think about, is do we actually need all the information that we think we need? How are we communicating with people these days? Maybe we don't need physical addresses as often, or maybe that's something that we ask for secondarily. Like we just take the payment information and the email address so that we can still email an acknowledgement. And then once people submit, we say, if you would like to be communicated with over mail, please submit your address. But now we already have their gift. We're not losing them because we're asking for those things. So I think these are just also important things that you say, like if we can take away 2 of the steps in the 7-step process, right? Like it just makes it more user-friendly.
Absolutely. That is such good data for us all to know about. I mean, it could be something as simple as we might just need a first name and an email address and auto-populated credit card information, and we're getting a donation, as opposed to trying to get more at the onset and causing some people to just not follow through. That's the reality of how busy we all are and how many tabs we have open on our devices.
100%. And I
So-
think what Krista just wrote in the chat is so important too. She said, I always write no mail, please, in the address to fields, which Krista, thank you. I so appreciate that. And so do other organizations, because the organizations don't want to be spending money mailing to people who don't get it. We get our mail like once every 4 or 5 days because all of our bills come online through Chase, and there's no need to really get the mail. It's junk mail 95% of the time, unless it's someone's like wedding invitation or birthday invitation. And even most of the birthday things come Evite now. So it just, there's really, yes, let's be more friendly to the planet. Let's, yes, I think it's.
Sorry, USPS, but it's taking too long and we're all losing our mail. Please, if you have questions, think about those. I just have one last question for Lisa, and Tommy and I always do our best to get you off by 9:55, 57. So we've got 10 minutes of Lisa left, and we're excited. So the last question I have is, how can organizations create a culture of innovation? Maybe some tips on little things that can be done within your organization, whether it's in that remote setting or in the office, to kind of support this type of thinking and working.
So I would say start by banning the phrase, this is the way we've always done it, right? This is like the biggest first step that you can take in reframing people's mindset. I would say a second thing is to just have a brain. Next time you need to do something a little bit different or a little bit new, start by having a brainstorming session and frame the brainstorming session as all ideas are welcome here. It can be the silliest idea in the entire world. You can say, we're going to have an event where everybody's required to make a funny hat and to wear it on their arm, right? Fine. And this is a great idea, and nobody can say, oh, that's silly, or I don't like, and it gets written onto the whiteboard, and every single idea gets written onto the whiteboard. And love the hat, Tommy, love that. And this sort of sparks that fun, creative side. Like when we were kids, or put out blocks in a meeting, right? And let people, or Play-Doh or something, and let people fidget with their hands, because there is a connection to those things, to our mental process and how we think, that allows us to be more creative, to tap into that like inner kid side of us that is friendly and playful and fun. Put out pipe cleaners, right? Who remembers pipe cleaners? You can twist them in so many different ways and make so many different things out of them. But the ability to sort of fidget with that with our hands releases our creative juices. And so I think even just something as simple as brainstorming, putting every silly idea up there that comes out, and saying this is not a place where anybody can negate anything or talk negatively about anything, begins to create that culture of like, there is no dumb idea here, right? This is a safe space where we can all think together. And that takes people out of the place potentially of fear, or of that I might be ridiculed or ashamed or embarrassed if I say something that's silly. And so it allows people to think better. And I think these are just really easy ways. I would say also start with the people who are interested. Not everybody's brain thinks innovatively. Not everybody's interested in innovation. Let's be honest, there are some people who come into work, do their work, and want to leave for the day, and they're not really interested in going above or beyond, and that's okay. So I would say don't force it on people, but start with the people who are interested, and maybe even create like a task force of people who are interested, and have them look at some of the processes and some of the things, and then highlight those successes, right? And highlight those in a really public way if you can. So if you have an all staff meeting, highlight the fact that Christine and Frank, go ahead, Frank. Highlight the fact that Christine or whoever, right, did this really amazing thing, and that they thought innovatively and creatively, and they came to you with this idea, and how amazing that was, because that positivity will get other people to think, oh, I can do this too, or this idea was encouraged, and I can bring my idea forward as well, and it will also be encouraged.
Oh, I love all of that. Such great facilitation ideas, example of way to get teams together and work better and smarter. Shannon asks, what's your favorite innovation story, nonprofit innovation story?
Ooh, that's a good one, Shannon. What's my favorite nonprofit innovation story? Well, I guess I'll use this I had written a list of some bullet points of things I wanted to fit in, and one of them I haven't fit in yet. So I'm going to tie that in here to this question, which is about workflows and automations. Is that I had an organization that everything they were doing manually. And even that, like, they would enter a gift into their database and it didn't prompt that they needed an acknowledgement, let alone autofill the acknowledgement so that they could export it or anything like that, right? They weren't doing anything like that. And they were able to add some automations, add some workflows so that they knew, if I do this, now I'm going to do that, it's going to prompt that. And a lot of that happened on the back end. Or for example, when a new person opts into through our website or through our MailChimp, they're going to go down this welcome series. They're going to get 4 emails to learn more about our organization. And then they're going to go into our quarterly newsletter so that they now, we've primed them and it's not a quarter until they hear from us again. And I think that it's small things like that organizations are maybe not thinking about right now, that can add a lot, right? So take this welcome series example. It adds a ton to the person's connectivity and they had customized these. So if somebody made their first donation, the first letter that they got said, "Thank you for being a first-time donor to X." Right? So now I know that I'm a first-time donor. That feels really good to me. It feels like you see me and you acknowledge me and it's customized toward me, everything else, but it's not requiring that one-on-one bandwidth. So it's significantly increasing their bandwidth and their ability to reach out. So I think it's things like that that are sort of my favorite innovation stories, of small things that we can do that really make a big difference in a meaningful way.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Sure.
I think we can take one more question, then Tommy's telling me he has an announcement. I don't know, I'm on the edge of my seat as to what that could be, but any last question before we go over to Tommy? Hearing none, our multitaskers are at work. I just want to give Lisa a huge thank you to Lisa for joining us. Can we give Lisa a virtual round of applause for inspiring us this morning, for helping us think about things a bit differently. I know I have some great takeaways here. I love this innovation task force idea. When we do strategic planning, I think that's something I really want to incorporate. Right now, we do a lot around visioning and thinking 10 years out, and it's very intertwined in many ways, but I just like that idea. So thank you for all of your fresh ideas and approaches. And I want you to plug Plans That Produce before we wrap up, because I think that's something that we'll put in an email as well, but just tell everybody about Plans That Produce before we close out.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Christine. So Plans That Produce is our new-ish online course. We just finished our beta test of it, which is great. And it takes people step by step through the process of creating a fundraising plan. So I'm a big believer that, Brian Tracy has this quote that for every minute you spend planning, you save 10 minutes in execution. And I think that's incredibly true. And if you just do some quick math on that, right, like it's wild how much time you can save. I think a fundraising plan sort of even like prevent staff turnover, right? And I can tell you more about all of that. It creates credibility with your board, and it just has a ton of benefits that you might not think that a plan would have, but it takes you out of this place of being reactive and puts you into the driver's seat of your organization. And so Plans That Produce is a 4-week course that takes you really step by step through the process of creating a fundraising plan. So there's a worksheet after each lesson. And by the end, if you do those worksheets as you go, by the end, you will have already created your fundraising plan. The feedback from the beta test has been incredibly positive. We'll be launching again in October and hope to see some of you potentially in the course. So, and thank you again for having me, Tommy and Christine. This is such a wonderful community that you've created, and I hope to be able to join in the future when you're doing this remotely, even just as a listener and participant, to hear from some of the other speakers that you'll have and to get to know the audience more. So thanks again so much for having me, and thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you, Lisa. You're on our list now. You won't be able to escape us, I promise.
I love it.
So thank you.
All right,
Lisa.
Tommy, over to you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Christine, for doing a great job as you do month in and month out. I do want to keep to our time frame, so I want to help you guys get on the way. I did just want to share one quick thing in the chat. I was asked by a friend of ours a friend of this community, my friend Dave Lynn, had asked me to be part of something next Wednesday, which is called All Day Gratitude All Day, 24 hours of gratitude. And it's a live stream, and I'll be on there for 2 different hours on Wednesday afternoon, 4 to 5 Eastern, and then 7 to 8 a.m. on Thursday. Check out the website. It's just really a cool concept. And think about gratitude. We can do a whole session on gratitude. Maybe we'll bring Dave on to do that at some point. But just, if you want to call in when I'm on there, if you want to jump on the Zoom and say, I'm grateful for this, or I'm grateful for that, it's really good vibes, good feeling. So we can always talk more about that down the road. Let us know, please fill out the survey feedback. Let us know what we can help with. If there's anything you want, specific topics, specific resources you want us to bring, please tell us what you need. At that point, I'm over on time. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, you are part of the community now. I mean, listen, a lot of our speakers, come here as a speaker and then they come back as a participant many times over. So
I'd love to do that.
welcome to join us and appreciate your insight. And thank you. Everybody, make it a great day. I'll talk to you all soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.